It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it is great to have you in studio with us today. Shelly Shepherd from the Arizona Game and Fish Department is back with us. Hello.
Hello and good morning.
Quarter two is already here.
I know.
Amazing.
Time is going by fast.
Very. As it always does.
It does.
azgfd.com is the website, and you guys updated your website. What?
.gov. Sorry.
azgfd.gov was updated this last quarter. Yeah, just recently.
Yeah,
so it's a little easier to use and stuff like that. We talked about it last time you were here.
Yes, and we refer to it quite a bit as the portal. And you can set up a portal profile and all these great things. And yes, we have been trying to clean it up, make it a little bit easier for people to follow. And if you just go on the homepage, there's a lot of headers. And the best thing is just click on those headers to kind of find the topic that you're looking for.
Yeah, you can move around real easy.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a good time you're here because last week we had a bear in Sedona. And then a few weeks prior to that, we had javelina attacks in Sedona.
Right.
Javelina attacks. It just sounds so weird to say that.
I know.
It happened. It was real and it happened. Javelinas attacked an elderly woman. It was Sedona and the village of Oak Creek. There were two different instances
two different
within
instances.
a short period of time with each other.
Yes, one was sort of in the beginning of February, and the other one was sort of towards the end of the month. And the overall theme, which is not a good one, is feeding. Both of these individuals were feeding those animals. They were coming into their properties regularly. The case with the gal is she actually was trying to sort of separate the javelina and her dogs. The javelina were starting to come towards her dogs, so she was trying to break that up. She ended up getting bit in the leg. The gentleman was actually actively feeding at the time.
Just down there feeding away, huh?
Feeding away, and what we suspect happened is he just wasn't putting the food out fast enough. One javelina became a little bit more aggressive, bit him in the leg.
Speed it up. Come on,
I know, we need more. We need more.
Right,
and in both of those cases, they both ended up going to the hospital, some treatment. If I remember correctly, one person opted to go through the rabies shot series, one person did not.
But we had a javelina months prior that was positive for rabies.
Right. Back last year in July, we had a javelina test positive for rabies in the Sedona area.
Is that unusual?
The javelina is somewhat unusual,
for rabies, right? Because that's like the first time I've ever heard of it.
Not very often do we see that. Yeah. Typically what people kind of recognize with rabies is bats and skunks.
Fox.
And lately, and that's one thing we were going to talk about today and give you an update, is just in the last several months, we've had, I think, I can check my number, we've had close to 15 positive cases of foxes with rabies. We've had a few coyotes come back positive, I think only one skunk. And we did have one other javelina come back. And I know we just said it's rare, but we had a javelina come back positive, and that was out of the Flagstaff area. So it's happening, it's out there. People may be asking, so what do we do preventative or whatnot? We just had an incident, I forgot. We just had another incident yesterday or the day before. Person hiking on a trail, fox starts coming down the trail towards him. Guy's kind of like, what's going on? He recognized that the animal was acting unusual, and before he knew it, it bit him in the foot. He tried to push it away, kick it away, whatever he did, kind of fighting back, and it bit him again in the leg. And so this gentleman is also going through the rabies shot series right now. In that situation, though, we have not recovered that fox. We don't know where it is. So
the Sedona area? Where was this happening?
Out of Sedona again. I don't know which hiking trail, but out of Sedona.
Well, we've had a few of those now, cases in the Sedona area where we've had fox. I think West Fork was one place. So, I know we jumped from feeding wildlife into rabies.
Sorry.
I know, that's okay. That's okay. That's Shelly. We just punch list this stuff.
Let's go.
We see this, though, on the drought years. And several years back when we had a real bad issue and foxes and skunks before, it was another drought year where it was really warm all winter long, and you don't really have that hibernation going on. The animals are out and about and constantly moving around. And so rabies stays with us all winter, where typically it would die off in the winter and come back maybe in the spring, because animals with rabies may go to sleep and then just die. but
Right.
they're out there enough to find each other and bite each other, or us.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask, well, how's it passed along? And typically it's just saliva, or are there any open wounds or whatnot, whether it's from another animal to another animal, or let's say the animal to a person. Of course, a bite, we always take those precautions and tell everyone that they need to probably go through the rabies series. And I think the other thing is these years that we see this, and sort of this increasing number, is because they are starting to move around a little bit more, and because they're not well, we see them. They're on the trails, or people are running into them more often, is because they're not healthy, and for whatever reason, they may be moving around closer to some of our urban settings and whatnot. Because everybody says, so is this an unusual year? We've had a high number, and it potentially could be associated to the drought conditions. Do you remember a few years back with Flagstaff, we did have a big boom with foxes with rabies, and then there was an effort several years ago where they actually dropped
Baits.
the oral vaccinations.
Oral
and so
vaccinations, right.
things kind of mellowed out a little bit. And so is that another situation? Has that time frame sort of worn itself out? And is this something else to look at? And I have to say, is not only is our agency kind of aware of the situation, just trying to keep people alert, but you've got Yavapai County Health officials and staff, Coconino County Health officials, and then, of course, all the animal control folks, whether they're from Sedona or Flagstaff, the county animal control folks, everybody's on alert with this rabies situation.
I've even seen videos on YouTube where someone's like, oh, look at that drunk raccoon, or look at that drunk fox. And it's really simple. If it's an animal that you wouldn't normally see during the daylight hours, if it's nocturnal and it's roaming around during the day, that's number one sign right there. So a fox during the day, I mean, you'll see them, but it's a little unusual to see them during the day running around.
The ones that are really
Skunks.
nocturnal, yeah.
Skunks, bats. Things like that.
Bats on the ground.
Bats on the ground, don't touch them.
Yep.
And if you see an animal having a hard time walking, and
be aware.
They don't always have a foam on the mouth like you see on movies and TV, you know.
Right.
But if they're acting drunk and they can't walk and they're falling over and moaning and groaning, they're just not looking very good, don't go near it. And probably we should tell people to have, right now, when we're going hiking, I always make sure I got a big stick. And I walk with that stick, and I tell you what, I would not let that fox come down that trail and get that close to me before I would be like, no, you need to go a different direction.
It's just unusual behavior.
It is, yeah.
That's the biggest thing. They shouldn't come up to you, staggering, maybe walking around in circles. And like you just said, the foaming at the mouth, not always the case.
Right.
And then even some of you may see a skunk during the day, you may see a raccoon during the day, but there's usually something else associated with it. There's something else going on usually. So what can people do? Really, I would say this, and some of the trails in the Sedona area are marked, hey, heads up, some locations in Flagstaff, and it really is just be very, very aware. It may be the case where you don't take your dog with you on these particular hikes or walks or whatever you do, because there's a good possibility that it may be the pet first and then the human with the bite or exposure. So we just have to kind of change our behavior, watch their behavior, and really, it ties into feeding is don't, eliminate a lot of those attractants around the house so these wild animals do not come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
All right, let's take
go.
our first break. Game and Fish and Shelly Shepherd in studio today. azgfd.gov is the website. Stick around. Countywide will be back in just a couple minutes.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ah yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed. about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome back to Countywide Game and Fish. Shelly Shepherd in studio today. azgfd.gov is the website. So we were talking about feeding wildlife. We got off onto the rabies, but I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm going to grab that and I'll make sure I talk about that more.
People need to stay aware and stay alert.
Shelly was saying off show between July of last year and mid-March of this year in northern Arizona, 17 foxes, 2 javelina, 2 coyotes. So
and several other animals tested
Sure.
or collected, and either they came back negative or there just wasn't enough specimen to get a good test.
Gotcha.
So there were a few that were unknown. So, but still happening.
And now with the feeding of the wildlife, we'll just breeze through this really quick for everybody. The javelina, you wind up having to go out a certain radius around those properties to get rid of those javelina because once you start habituating an animal, it's like, hey, it's 6 a.m. I got to be right here for dinner.
The buffet is open.
Right,
yeah,
so
that's
it's
what
not
it's
like they're going to stop coming. They're just going to keep on coming, and they're going to expect that.
Yeah, keep on coming, changing their behavior. They're not going to be looking for natural foods anymore. They know that Mrs. Jones will put watermelon on her porch every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that herd of javelina will be there, and that was the case with these 2 individuals. Had the feeding activity, some of the neighbors were aware of it. We really didn't get a whole lot of complaint calls from the people in that area, but once we had the bite, or bites, then we needed to go in and
now it's serious.
It's pretty serious. I mean, we have a public safety problem and a threat at that point, and so our agency actually coordinates with Wildlife Services, and these are the individuals that come in, and they worked a quarter-mile radius around those residences, and we lethally removed javelina in those 2 particular areas. That was just under 20 animals removed for both.
That's too bad. Okay, so
and that's the thing too is that feeding wildlife usually has a bad end result, and in most cases those animals may be put down, or we have a bite situation and then we have to take those steps.
They're not supposed to be there.
It doesn't help.
I like your slogan. I don't know if it's a new slogan, but keep the wild in wildlife.
Yeah, or keep wildlife wild.
Keep wildlife wild.
Yeah, we have a brochure that's out right now, and it talks about.
Can I say it backwards?
Keep wildlife wild. You're close. You're close.
I was, but yeah, keep wildlife wild. So it's not supposed to be in my backyard.
They're not supposed to be in your backyard?
They are not supposed to be in my backyard roaming about looking for dinner.
No. And here's the thing about the wildlife feeding and the ordinances and what we have in place. There are ordinances in place for counties that have 280,000 people or more. Pima, Pinal, and Maricopa. You may see a fine of up to $300, but it is a petty offense. So those are in place. Flagstaff, I'll use as an example. They passed a feeding ordinance back in 2013 to try to combat the feeding problems that we had in our city up there. So we've got these ordinances in place, and hopefully that'll help. But some people may ignore those. They don't understand. They don't even know. And you said, should they even be in my backyard? We want to encourage people to put out bird feeders or bird baths or a hummingbird feeder. But as you are kind of watching and enjoying wildlife, if you start seeing other animals in, and I think you and I talked about this.
We did.
You start with the birds.
Well, Zen McCarskey talked about it too. Yeah, you get the bird feeders, and the bird seed falls in the ground. Now you got the mice and the rats, the chipmunks and stuff like that. And then you got, here, Mr. Rattlesnake, look at that, I got food over there. And then the animals start getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
You got the circle of life going on in your backyard. And eventually Mr. Mountain Lion comes in and says, hey, look at this smorgasbord going on here. Right. So
the thing is
it can happen. It doesn't happen everywhere, but it can happen.
It can happen, and that's the time to say, okay, I better pull whatever those sources are and take a little break from it. And then critters kind of figure out, oh, there's no food source here. and then they move on and hopefully go back out into the wild setting, whatever that is, the desert or the woods. And we don't have these urban wildlife issues.
Let's segue this one right into the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so we had the bear. I don't necessarily want to talk about, yes or no, did we ever find the bear?
Never found the bear.
Never found the bear.
He wandered.
He managed to cross 89A, which I cannot believe, in Sedona, and managed to just keep on cruising.
Kept on going.
That's
Yeah, really wandered through.
That is a heck of a bear. I don't know how he did 89A and got through there, but I'd have been killed for sure. It's drought conditions. So we were talking about feeding wildlife, and some people are like, wow, you know, it's really rough out there for these guys. They're having a hard time. And we did a little story with you last weekend, and you mentioned about feeding wildlife, but animals are used to drought. And I've even heard that some animal species will say, oh, we have to hold back on how many young we have because there's lack of food.
They don't reproduce. Do they just lose
Mother
whatever?
Nature takes care of itself.
It does. It does.
It does a really great job of that.
And we don't need to do supplemental feeding. We don't need to do supplemental water. They know how to adapt. This is our desert environment, and these animals live here and adapt to that.
Born and raised,
yeah, pretty much. And really, we just need to kind of let nature take its course.
On the other hand, though, Shelly, I want to say this though, that it is a drought year, a very extreme drought year.
It's pretty dry.
So there is a chance. I mean, I know you guys have had issues in Mesa with coyotes coming into people's backyards and picking up their little dogs and stuff like that, and cats and disappearing. And that's not unusual to hear that coyotes have gone through a neighborhood and removed half the cats. You see the lost cat signs all over the place. But this year especially, we do have drought conditions. So I would imagine that, you know, that young bear was on his own, kind of looking for his way in life, and there's Sedona. What a great spot, you know. And maybe he's bumping into water and food and stuff like that. But they are going to be coming down out of the hills, possibly.
It's a fair point, and yes, what they're doing is really they're not coming to our towns knowing there's food and water. They are just moving around, trying to find those food and water sources. And you know, as they come in, the pool in the backyard is a perfect source, or is somebody putting out their bird seed, attracting rabbits and quail or whatnot. And hey, there's an easy food source. And the thing about wildlife is they will use the least amount of energy to find or locate food. And so in the case of, let's say, a coyote, and we've got a small fuzzy pet in the backyard.
Sure.
You know, easy prey, easy pickings, and so that's what they're going to do.
Can't get away.
Right, exactly.
Can't get away.
You know, folks that have maybe half an acre and they have a backyard and they've got a chicken coop and some bunny rabbits and other things, you know, that we do have those cases where wildlife may come in and take those. But I think, you know, this year compared to other years, we've really been in drought for a very long time. This is a usually warm year, and we had a horrible winter. And so what else are we looking at with wildlife and sort of the biology behind it? There's potentially the case where bears really never ever did a true hibernation, and they typically don't in our state. They don't go into dens, stay all winter, and then come out in the spring. There's a lot of years we've had where bears are moving in and out of the den site to potentially get more food. And overall, you know, with these dry conditions, then our habitat is not healthy, and then the food sources are eliminated or really poor, and so that's kind of where some of that kind of cycle comes in.
So they're moving about. They are moving about.
Yeah.
We may see more reports of things like that where, I mean, in years past we've seen, I want to say mountain lions in Jerome, we've seen mountain lions down in the Black Hills area. You know, they've got their territory, and they've got their water hole and stuff like that, and they've got their food sources, but once those start to dry up in these drought years, then it's like, oh, well, I need to move a little bit further out and a little further out, and pretty soon, all of a sudden, you know, we've built up to their back door, so now they're in our backyard.
And the thing is, too, is a lot of the prey, that they're looking for the same thing, and if the prey aren't finding the food and water, they also move, and of course they follow the prey if we're talking about predators.
Can I find all this stuff on azgfd.gov?
You're going to find quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit. We got to take a break. That's why I'm asking.
Okay,
yeah,
some of it.
Yeah, you can't say any more. We have to take a break. Game and Fish is Shelly Shepherd in studio. Again, the website is azgfd.gov. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here?
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey. Ready for the...
Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary. Ah, Smokey! Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a few minutes left of the program. We're having a good time this morning.
We are.
We're punch listing some more here.
We are.
Hunting. You guys changed a bunch of dates for hunts and stuff, and it's probably got some folks maybe a little confused. But I think the hunters are probably pretty good about going to your website and seeing all that stuff. But nevertheless.
They're pretty good, and a lot of folks, it's funny you mentioned the website. A lot of people are starting to get tuned into that.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done, the regulations are out online. Everybody's kind of trying to figure out deer hunts and some of the other fall hunts. Elk and antelope, done. Now the rest of the fall hunts. Regulations are out online, not paper right now, and they should be out any day now for people to look through the booklets. But the new deadline for the paper applications, you got to fill all that stuff out, drop off an envelope with a check at one of our offices. That deadline is now going to be May 8th by 7 o'clock in the evening. That is new, so everybody needs to kind of pay attention to that. Same old deadline for the online applications, June 12th. It's always that's the second Tuesday in June. And that's till 11:59 in the evening. So all that said, we are shifting from paper applications to more than likely only online applications, maybe by as early as 2019, early part of the year. So we want everybody to kind of start getting used to no more paper, got to do online applications. And in the regulations, I'll say this, is we've had some changes. The big one I'll emphasize is drones. Drones are considered aircraft. Cannot use those to locate wildlife.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
so that's kind of a new one, and there may be some more changes come this fall on some equipment. Stop doing it. I know you're a troublemaker.
I'll stop doing
Don't do
that.
that. Stop chasing those animals.
I did not know I could do that. You can't. Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense.
Well, for hunting now, hunting purposes or scouting purposes before the hunt, it falls into the same category as aircraft, and we have some regulations about aircraft and wildlife and hunting.
I guess I never thought about that. Kind of cheaty. On the ground, following, doing the tracking thing and stuff like that.
That's where some of this discussion called fair chase, ethical hunting. We've got a committee now addressing some of those things. And what else is out there? There's some interesting devices and technologies.
Sure. Well, that's just it. As we proceed in our evolution, we come up with new ways of doing things. So I can see where there's an argument on that side for that as well.
We're looking into some of that.
Other things we want to do, OHVs, man, they're going to be hitting the trails here pretty quick. We've got fire restrictions all over the place, but that doesn't stop people from going camping still.
They can still go out camping.
OHV safety courses and booklets and stuff at Game and Fish offices statewide. And then the quagga mussel. I love talking quagga mussel. We have a minute to talk.
You like to say it.
I love saying quagga mussels. They are as large as a grain of sand, and they can live out of the water forever and stick to the side of your boat. So when you pull your boat out of one lake, wash it down with soap and water.
Yep. Hot
soap
water.
and water. Oh, brutal.
Yep.
and then feel it, and you shouldn't.
It feels like sandpaper.
It feels like sandpaper.
Yeah, that's
so
what it feels
if you
like,
got
yeah.
a bunch of those little buggers on your boat, you're going to take them and drop them in the water someplace else.
Right.
They're going to come off and say, hey, here we
don't
go.
want that. Yep,
Yeah.
clean, drain, dry is something like that.
dramatically, though, haven't they, across the
and
state?
it's still an issue in our state.
They're spreading like wildfire.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, it's pretty hard
It's
to
a
stop
problem.
something that's the size of a grain of sand.
And I'll tell you what, it messes up people's boats. So do your best.
Do your best. Do your best.
Yep.
All right. That's it. That's all we got time
Deep
for.
breath.
I know. Okay, so we hit everything. All right. Thank you, Shelly Shepherd, for coming in the studio.
You betcha. It's
I
always
appreciate
great to be here.
That's today's show. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.